get serious about building content sites and building a profitable business online? Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. We bring you the latest field-tested tips, tricks, and strategies for building a profitable online asset. We interview industry experts, share customer success stories, and reveal our own experiences working on hundreds of sites to inspire and motivate you to make something happen. Let's do this.
Welcome to the Niche Website Builders Podcast. Today we dive straight into the topic, no introduction, nothing, with Mike Pearse. And this is just an hour filled with knowledge bombs, mainly around the helpful content update, what he's seen happening with the update, how you can almost protect yourself from the update as well, and his advice around that. We also cover ideas around no such thing as evergreen content and why he believes that is. And we also cover his thoughts on EAT and what EAT really is as well. So we dive into an hour essentially just on these topics, super in detail as well. So you're going to get a lot out of this. I got a lot out of this, and I hope you enjoy it. Further, if you go down into the description, there's a link there for Mike's SEO conference coming up end of this month in September as part of his NFG SEO company. And if you go down there, it's all online, so it doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can do this. And they're going to cover a whole bunch of SEO and other local SEO stuff there too. So check that out in the description below.
This episode is brought to you by Niche Website Builders, an agency dedicated to helping people just like you build profitable content sites. Niche Website Builders are the hands-off content site marketing agency you always wished existed. It's run by content site marketers for content site marketers, and they help both investors and individuals alike build profitable online properties. They provide a fully outsourced approach to content creation, link building, and done-for-you website builds, the same approach they use on their own six-figure portfolios. For example, their content packages come with a proprietary keyword research process, are written by in-house native English speakers, formatted using templates proven to convert, and uploaded to WordPress with affiliate links added so that all you need to do is hit the publish button. Check them out at nichewebsite.builders/show. That's nichewebsite.builders/show and fill out the form to get coupon codes for 10% more content or a 10% discount on links with your first order sent right to your inbox.
So looking at the last week, like 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago, it started to do the backup and turn for a lot of people that I'm seeing get hit based on their content, right? And a lot of what's going on is it's news content, it's publisher content, like a magazine style thing where it's one-offs without a lot of support on the site. So when they mention you want to have a targeted website, I mean, that's all well and good. We can go general, but we want to support what we're writing about, and we've used you in the past for our content too. So you know what I'm talking about, right? With that kind of page grouping. What I'm seeing with a lot of the people that are losing about 80% of their traffic right now is that they're missing some stuff on page, but more so right now, they're missing a lot of support. If you do like a site query in the search, you'll see that query A, like everyone that stayed up is talking about this or that. And you can see the intent and what they're talking about in the keyword modifier, right? It's like pizza recipe versus pizza restaurant. That's a different user.
Yeah.
And so they're dropping, and it is on the queries where they're not supporting those. And to me, the whole content thing and the whole user thing, it's all about that the way that Google has decided that query should display content. So if they have metrics to say we're going to throw video in, we're going to throw books in or whatever, and we know that people are going to click on a website and then they're going to click to the next page. One of the examples I use a lot is like if your keyboard doesn't work, right? And you go to a site, you go to Google, say my keyboard doesn't work, and you'll see they're actually throwing in some SERP features that show you what the next search should be, which kind of correlates in the markets to what the next page on the website that they visit should be. So with like a keyword like my keyboard doesn't work, they might want to know what OS. So it might need to mention Mac. It might need to mention a PC or Windows 11, or it might need to mention hardware or software, right?
Yeah.
And when people are missing those secondary pages that support those pages, that's when I see them start to drop right now. So there was about a week period of them just tanking, and about a day, 2 days ago, they turned back up. And so it's been a really interesting update because pretty much everyone I know isn't seeing anything, right? Like the people that I spend
Yeah.
time with, no one's affected. I knew you were saying your sites aren't
Yeah.
affected, right?
My eyesight's been fine. In fact, they've just been growing consistently.
Yeah, there's that. Then that's happening a
Mm.
lot. A lot of them are growing. Sites that lost in like summer last year, I've seen them grow back. Not all of them are back at the levels they were, but they're going back up. And so I think that and we'll touch on AI because I know you guys aren't huge proponents of AI. You
Mm.
guys write
Yeah.
content by hand.
Yeah.
What's interesting and why I kind of like what you guys are doing is that I'm not just seeing this with AI. It's not about AI content, right? It is about the user. At the end of the day, they tell you exactly what it's about. Their update literally laid out what they want to see. And I'll see publisher sites that are all handwritten. I know that they're using copywriters that are worth $1 million a year, and they're taking the same hits that a page that's written with AI is taking, while another page with AI is growing and another one staying the same, right? So it really does come down to the research there and the data that you pull out, in my opinion. Um, and I'm assuming that you guys are seeing a lot of traffic, or some of the staff there are seeing a lot of these sites, and I would assume they're doing fairly well because I've seen your research processes, and they always come back with solid supports, actually. So, how much
Uh,
volume do you guys do?
I'm not too sure on that part. You have
Yeah,
to hit up Mark and Adam about that. I'm literally the front guy for the
no
podcast
worries.
and do all that. But for anyone listening as well, this is the Niche Website Builders podcast. There was no formal intro on this one. We just went straight into it. Mike decided to go straight into the update, which was awesome, providing his thoughts on that. And I wanted to continue on this topic because I guess a lot of people lost their shit as soon as Google announced their update. I think it happens pretty much every time. Knee-jerk reaction to whatever is being said. Are there things that you've seen that people have been doing that they shouldn't be doing? And are there things that people should be doing, I guess, to help themselves to not be touching this update or to take advantage of it?
Yeah, the things that people shouldn't be doing is if I look at it like someone that's coming into blog for the first time. They're starting a blog and they are writing something constantly. Day one, they have something on their mind, so they write that topic. The next day, they just pick something else that they're interested in and write that topic, right? Then a day later, they're interested in something again, and it's similar to the first day, and so they write about it again, and just naturally, it's targeting the same stuff. There's no support in between, and over time, doing that, I think we can all see that over the years of doing SEO, that the less organized and structured you are, especially with your content and your linking, um, you're losing money over time because eventually one of these cores like the helpful content, they're going to take your traffic, they're going to derank you. I mean, and it's getting faster now. So what
Mm,
we see a lot is that when people don't plan it, when people don't come out with the right supports at the same time, they end up never getting as much traffic as they should because they haven't actually planned it out. And so planning that content out is extremely important, whether you're an SEO or you blog and you're just doing content because you're interested in a market. It should be organized and planned for a reason. And that's what's happening with these people that are losing traffic from the ones I've seen. And I've seen a lot over the last week that they are not organized. They'll write about a topic and then just pick a tangent topic that's somewhat related, but they leave that first article unsupported on page and
okay.
off page. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing with the content right now. And to me, I truly think they just rolled math out that they had in certain markets into more English queries. But like what I'm seeing here, my buddies in Australia aren't seeing yet. Like they said it's everywhere. They said it's all English queries. I don't think it is. I mean, I think it's always kind of rolling out where they need to roll it out. But definitely seeing it in newer markets right now. There's people getting hit. A lot of the stuff that I'm seeing that was AI content, and I'm not going to say that this targeted AI content because I truly don't believe that.
Mm,
I know a lot of people say that, but the problem is people use it as a crutch and they don't actually do the kind of research that you guys do to build out a plan and actually have a goal to achieve for the user. And everything Google says all the time is about the user, and how good they're getting at knowing what that user wants and delivering, whether they're logged in or not, delivering custom content in those SERPs for that user. If they can do that, then they know whether you're touching on the right stuff on the website. I mean, it's not hard to, after they know that this person searching at this time of day and all those people in this one location, they want a certain type of um, like SERP. If you don't mention something that they know everyone mentions for that
Mm.
SERP, then you're locking yourself out for high ranking. You might get impressions, but you're not going to take the positions and the traffic that you want, right? They don't want to deliver it. And to me, it's all about them recommending something that works for the user so they can make their ad revenue.
Yeah.
And so if you're not giving them the user a good service with your site, and quality's here or there, in my opinion, it just means what the user wants. Then they're not going to give you the traffic. Why would they? I mean, you wouldn't if you had, if we're affiliates, right? We do, you do affiliate
Yep.
marketing.
Yep.
Yeah. So if we have like 5 products that we're reviewing and one of them never converts, is that going to stay on page, or is that going to get switched out for something else that
Mm.
converts, right?
Yeah.
Why would you do it any differently? And I don't know why Google would do it any differently. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I remember you talking about that on previous live streams you've done about. I guess that's what you mean by supporting on the page as well, right? Having those entities and I guess keywords or products on the page, and that's something I started doing. Like, I don't. There's some products I don't want to recommend because maybe they're super
Right.
shit, but I'll be like, okay, these products to avoid, or other ones
Exactly.
mentioned to not have, and then explain why I didn't pick them, and that's kind of what I've started doing now, and
Yep.
that's helped a shit ton just doing something
It
like
does, because if you don't do that,
that.
so there was a query. We do a lot of drug rehabilitation, like calls
Mm.
and leads as one of the markets we're in, and we're in crypto. And both of those, I had sites take hits maybe 6 months ago or 10 months ago on crypto. And then we were building some new stuff and we were locked out of the map pack, even in the local, and locked out of page one, and found like one freaking keyword, like modifier, that just makes no sense. But I mean, it's hard to see on page if you're just scanning. You kind of needed a tool to see that.
Okay.
And that needed to be there. And it was kind of locking and dampening us, and locking us out of certain queries that we needed. We wanted those queries, right, for the map pack. And then for crypto, some hacks that happened on certain coins. I didn't update this content. The content performed extremely well. And actually, I think you guys wrote that content and it did what it needed to do for like 6-7 months. But I didn't publish news in there. I let the site sit, right?
Mm.
And so when the core rolled out and there was some major market changes, I missed a hack that happened to a coin and I didn't mention it on that coin. And everyone else is mentioning that hack that happened and talking about security and hardware. And I wasn't talking about security, hardware, or that hack. And so my traffic dropped, right? When that
Mm.
goes back, the traffic comes back up because they want to be real time. They want it to be news. They want it to be fresh. But why is it fresh, right? We don't just want to put nonsense there. There's got to be a reason they say fresh content, right?
Yeah.
Because news happens, it changes. At least that's the way I see it. Um,
I
so
want to.
it's really interesting.
Yeah, I want to go down that rabbit hole just a little bit because there's a question I wanted to ask you for weeks now, waiting for this podcast, and we'll come back to some more content stuff. But so I have a page that ranks on the first page of Google. It's under maybe a couple of others, and there's one above me that was published in 2008, and it's been
Mhm.
there for ages. And one of the difference I see is they have comments enabled on their post, and they have like 300 comments. Do
Right.
those comments then help, I guess, almost with like the keyword density, hitting those entities on the page as well, because there's just so many different
Absolutely.
things?
Absolutely. It's content on page.
Yeah.
We did a test years ago, like it was a metric test. It was a cluster of websites. All of them had traffic. It was through Discus, when Discus was a data hub partner and sharing data with Google. Every website that was connected to the profile of every comment on the website, and we did this multiple times. Everything ranked for the same query at the same time, because
Yeah.
it's a cluster. If you look at the way these kind of things work, they are looking for groups of related pages that make sense. And when it ties together like that, it'll pull up. The other thing to look at especially look for the feeds if they're using news feeds on their site and things like
Mm.
that, because news feeds are a way to bring in, like on the page, if you embed the headlines, like that's a simple fix for what I was talking about with crypto. And not talking about the hack. If I had had the hack in there or had a newsfeed on that page, right?
Okay.
Potentially, when they
Mm.
crawled, they would have seen the mention of what they needed there. And so it's really interesting with client work when you tell someone that they need to get the word app on their page and they don't have an app that they can sell to someone or push someone to, explaining how they can. You said it perfectly. You don't want to
Mm.
talk about these bad products, but you mention it because you need that there. And that's
Yeah.
the same thing. So a lot of people don't grasp the fact that even if it's a negative term, there might be a query that requires it for the positive keyword you're trying to rank for, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really interesting. I see it. Have you ever done any ad buying or media buying?
No.
So to me, it's very reminiscent of AdWords and Quality Score and the way that they deliver the ads in the content network and things, because they do build those SERPs based on how the content performs, what the content talks about. And so they give a quality score. It relates kind of almost one to one for me. I think their whole thing is their ad platform. Um, and did you notice in any of your SERPs a lot of video coming in with this update?
Fuck, always,
Yeah,
always, just
right.
constantly, and then you're punished down to like spot 7 because you've got video. People also ask whatever the hell else is in
Yep.
there. You know.
Infinite scroll and video. You'll see the impression count stay the same, right? And your
Mm.
your click through rate and your clicks
Yeah.
just are going down, right? So if you see, and you can see it, like if you switch in console, if you jump off of like uh, mobile or back and forth between mobile and desktop, like you'll see some sites that are doing well with desktop, some sites that are doing well with mobile, and then you start
Mm.
digging into some of those queries, and a lot of them are just because the SERP landscape changed. And I think it was the last core before this, they talked about that they were updating the search and the SERPs for what users want in the SERP. And if you read the hand raters guide, the quality rater guidelines, they have them rating the SERP, not just the websites, right?
Mm.
And so if they're rating the SERP and seeing this is the right content in the SERP for the user and the intent of the query, and they're doing that to the website, then when that happens, we better be matching the content type in the SERP. Um,
Gotcha.
and I can't say they calculate it, but some of the new math that they could be playing with potentially could be, well, we know that we need to put video in here because it's performing well. So there's just a ton of shorts there. And you don't have any multimedia, you have no video whatsoever, and the competitors do. It's not hard to make a check and say there's no video on this page, and there's video on every other page. This page is not expertise because the experts make video in this market, right?
Yeah.
And with the video index map or whatever in console that they launched, a
Yeah.
lot's been going on around that lately in their development, in my opinion. So, um, but it all starts with a good content plan. Like seriously, man,
Mm.
it really does.
Does that mean then bloggers should look to start creating video because of these, I guess, issues in the search where they're serving video as, that's what the users want?
So, I would say I would say I think so that they should absolutely look at what Google is doing in their SERP, and when Google starts delivering video in their SERP for your query and they weren't before, with this update particularly, if that's happening, you might want to reevaluate the way you're producing content, and every piece of content you make easily can be repurposed into um, multiple things. I mean, you have video. Once you have a content plan, you now know what video it is. And once you have the content written, now you have almost a script for it. And you can
Okay.
actually use AI at that point or machine learning to create something or just have it edited, however you want to do that. Same with images. So I've always tried to do, like, if I create a piece of content, it should be like 4 or 5 media types. There's images, there's video, there's infographics, outside of the images. There's, once you do video, you have a podcast, right? You can rip
Yeah.
and there's no reason to not do that, right? Especially with an update like this, where you start to see what I believe they say helpful content. I just think that means that more of what the user wants in the SERP, meaning more of what we need to put on our page, is all I see. It's
Okay.
pretty simple, right? It's broken down into this like simple things. We have the data that delivers in search. If we grab that data and look at it, then we can make good guesses on what we should do for our pages, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it's an important thing to pay attention to. And I think that if you don't pay attention to the imagery and the video along with the content at this point, then you are not gaining the traffic that you should gain. It doesn't mean you're
Yeah.
going to not rank, because we all rank pages for hundreds of keywords, right? They get tons of impressions. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think they've made it pretty straightforward. I know a lot of people freaked out here and they're freaking out about the video thing. There's two sides. There's that argument of like, they just want to keep people on YouTube because they make money, right? And we don't make money and they want to take our traffic. But there's also the side that I kind of think we need to pay attention to, which is all that Google cares about is giving the user a good experience and making money. So if they're doing video in that search, it's because the user wants it in that search. And I'll tell you, it's not every query, because I'm looking at thousands upon thousands of queries, and there's a lot that pulled video in and new features. And then there's other ones where they have updates and they've been hit by this. They've been affected by the update, but they're not pulling video into it. They're pulling other features. And so it's just about the user, man. I think it all comes down to the intent of the user. And the only way I see to build a good link profile and do all this other stuff is by starting with a good content plan.
Yeah.
Like straight up. It has to be there because you have nothing to work off of.
Yeah. On the video front, obviously you talked about making video for the search, but if there's video on the page, you can just embed other people's YouTube videos, and that would almost still give you that, I guess,
I would
sameness
say yes in certain queries. Absolutely. I don't think you have to go after it. I mean, to me, it makes sense to market a website when we're doing SEO like we're marketing anything else, and just there's enough script out there. There's enough libraries and enough language and ML out there where you can actually create this. You know, you can auto create the images, auto create the videos. But yeah, I mean, if everyone is giving them a multimedia experience and they're making changes around that stuff, I would say we're making mistakes if we don't do that too.
Yeah.
You know, video performs better in my opinion for users. Users like it more, I should say, not performs better. Users like video better than content. I know myself, I'd rather watch a video than read a web page.
Yeah,
it's just
fair enough. And then I want to come back a little bit to that comment question I asked you as well. What would you do in that situation then to outrank someone who has 300 odd comments covering all the different, whatever, that's extra text on the page? Is there something you would do to almost, I guess, analyze that and see what differences are between the pages?
Yeah, I would check everyone in the top 20 and I would look for the overlapping rankings. Okay. And if there's things that are overlapping significantly that you don't have, I would put those on page. That could come in through the comments or somebody writing for a different slight market, and just see. But it has to have that decision what that page is going to be about, because once you tweak that, then other stuff starts to change too. Like it's literally like DJing and tuning a radio, dude. Like, you know, I want to go here, and so I'm tuning to that, right? It's not I'm going to go rank for one keyword and I'm done. Yeah. It's okay, the market that I want to be in is this, and if you see everyone talking about, you know, these things, so I'm going to do it. You might lose keywords, you might lose impressions, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if they're not keywords or impressions that you want, right? Yeah. So knowing that user intent, I think, is key. Yeah. Okay.
I think this might be exactly the same answer you just gave here, but for example, you're going back and updating content, right? So say you've got, I don't know, 2,000 word article, you're updating it, maybe you update it a couple of times a year, but each time you update it, you're adding a few hundred words each time. So now the article is now, I don't know, 3,500 words, and you're still looking to update it again. So is there a point where you're adding all these things in that you need to almost remove things from the article because it's getting too big and too long?
Usually when we're optimizing or adding in, we're not adding a lot of copy. We're kind of tweaking copy that's existing or using a kicker. Like when we're doing our clustering, we'll be going in and maybe adding a sentence talking about, hey, we need you to read this too because it's important for this topic, you know, and then that's the backlink and we get the anchor in we want. So it comes down to, like, I see it, the way I see it and the way our staff does it, and when we do our campaigns and stuff, is that we're going to optimize some pages and de-optimize other pages at the same time to make the right landing page rank in the search. And if we come in and we see we're missing something, it's as simple as, is it already on page or not? And if it's not, then get it in there. And if it's already on page, strengthen it, right? And so it's a matter of just kind of seeing and keeping on top of what the other pages that are your competitors are doing. In my
Yeah.
head, that's is the way I see it. And I do think those checks should be made regularly, especially if you see changes in impressions or especially click. So I think it's optimization. It's not let's write it and then not go back. It's let's write it and then make sure it's still right for the right person. In nature, things change. Like the target consumer might change for the product eventually, right? And if you're not going back and looking at the pages you wrote, well, now you're targeting the wrong consumer, and that just is a snowball. When people get there, they don't even want to be there because it's not the right content, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny how they did it. They did a good job, man. I've always been an automation, go big, lots of websites and a lot of spam, and I still like that. I still do that. But years ago, it became very clear that the spam needed to follow the rules and give the user what they wanted. And it's like I was telling Brad on Craig's show the other day, it was what's quality? Is it SERP Shaker? Because Brad's got a lot of SERP Shaker in his sites, right? And those sites convert very well and they get people off drugs. So Brad has SERP Shaker sites that are helping people stop using substances and abusing substances. And they're becoming, better parts of society and things like this. And then you've got someone writing handmade content that's kind of shifting those users somewhere else and not actually getting them the help they need. Which one really is the quality website, right? Is it the one that's auto-generated or the one that's handwritten? To me,
Yeah.
it's about the user, and that's what Google wants. And so that's kind of where we shifted everything. So if we go after the user, I don't think Google really cares what we do before that. Unless someone points it out, of course. If they point it out, then yeah, they're going to come get you because that's what they do.
Yeah.
But you can get out of that once you make an explanation and show things. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool landscape, man. How long have you been in SEO and doing affiliate, dude?
About 2 years. I'm still
Nice,
I'm
man.
still a newbie.
You enjoying it?
Yeah, I love it. Well, it's replaced my full-time career income previously now. Well, in fact,
It's
it's surpassed it. So
That's
it's
awesome,
even,
man.
yeah.
It's a blessing for sure. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it's been great for my kids and my family. It's been a long 20 something years, but um it what's your favorite part of it, man? So not to throw the questions at you, but what
Yeah.
part of it is your favorite? Because I geek out on the actual
Yeah.
SEO part. And I don't know if you love the SEO part, but if you do, like, what's your
Yeah.
favorite part of the SEO?
So for me, if you're talking purely the SEO, it's literally just outranking other people. It's almost like a
Yeah.
competition for me being able to outrank. The keyword research I enjoy, and then I actually enjoy the writing because it's kind of
Yeah.
like I'm in the same space as my career, so I get to educate and almost like more people can actually find and read my stuff. Like for example, I have a friend and colleague. He's the assistant strength conditioning coach for the Carolina Panthers, and he was like,
Okay.
I have a podcast, and I was doing one with him. He's like, oh yeah, his staff were just reading my article the other day, and they're going to start implementing a few things. And I was like, shit, like just like stuff like that's just awesome because now people are seeing my shit. Because previously,
It's
when I
great.
had no idea, I was writing stuff, and
Right.
no one sees that shit.
It's cool to have a platform where actually you can show people and people can actually see it and you can get the message out to people. And the writing, I think, has always kind of been what I love link building, but I started just doing affiliate for things I wanted to learn about. So to me, the writing part has always been the fun part because that's when I'm
Mm,
learning. Because if
yeah,
I'm writing a website, I'm teaching, and when I teach, I learn more than
yeah,
if I'm sitting around by myself, right?
for sure.
And that's why Brad and I teach because it keeps everyone fresh and everyone learns from each other, right? You learn from
Exactly.
everyone around you if you pay attention. So yeah, it's a cool industry like that. It's definitely worth sticking around in. It's interesting how freaked out people got for this helpful content thing, which to me it really looked like it was just another core update with a name, basically, and not even
Yeah.
a broad core update. It was a core update. It was an English update that I don't think even hit all of English. So yeah, it's very interesting. But I mentioned link building, and I think that link building starts with the exact same spot too, because once you get a content plan, and once you know what you're doing on page, Now you can start making the actual decisions you need off page to complete what you're missing on page, essentially. So, everyone talks about this metric or that metric for link building, but at the end of the day, you can look at it like you're missing something on page. You're not ranked as high for a certain query or something, then you're getting impressions and you want to push it. And you have the opportunity to put it somewhere that has a rank for that right there. And there's a traffic gap on that side, but not on the other. And you push it there, then that link might have a metric you need. Sometimes it's literally just an anchor text you need, right? But you can't understand that until you understand what that user intent is and the content is supposed to be. So it's funny because like literally we're known for making networks and spamming, but it's always been about the user. Like it's the difference between just spamming and not understanding what's needed. But really Google wants to match intent as closely as possible. They basically want to understand empathy so they know what the person needs and deliver exactly what that person needs, right? And so if we have the technical ability to analyze that and create pages that will pull that person in, I think we should use every tool at our disposal to do that and give the user what they want, right?
Yeah.
So it's a cool thing. It's
oh, for sure. It's eye-opening as well. It's eye-opening.
It is.
Like the first time I've said this to quite a few people, like before I got into the space, I would search things like, I remember in my old apartment, I was searching best food processor for whatever the kitchen, and I bought it through the Amazon link, whatever. Had no clue.
Yeah.
And then eventually you learn, you go, oh shit, the person who probably wrote that probably didn't even have a fucking clue anything on that list. And now I don't click any of them or search it.
It's eye-opening sometimes when you realize some of the power, like the decisions you need to make kind of like ethically because of what you actually can accomplish. I remember someone driving around and they mentioned, they set out to Skype to one of our groups, or like, you're not a great person when you spend half an hour driving around looking for this location and then realize it's one of your map listings and it doesn't exist, right? And like that's super eye-opening, right? So we did a course a while back about personalization or cloaking, whatever you want to call it. And we've talked a lot about like the lines that you can, it's a personal decision.
Yeah, for sure.
But everyone does it. Like you look at Google Optimize, that's a cloaking system. If you really want to get down to it, that personalization, that split testing is all cloaking, right? And so if you're doing that and you're doing it in a way to make a better user experience, then Google is okay with cloaking. If you're doing that and you're doing it to take advantage of a user and you're shoving malware down their face, well, then your government and Google don't like you, right? So it's all about that line and kind of what we decide to do with the kind of skills that we have, man. And that's why I love the content shops that I'm seeing right now that are doing solid like work, because it takes away a lot of the problems that newer agencies have that I see with delivering for people, right? Because the content part is not easy unless you have connection and good writers.
Yeah.
It's hard to give a good product unless you have something to fall back on, right? And I truly feel, especially with small business, that there's a big need to protect it. And, you can't take someone's money and then try to figure out how to do their SEO. And so if you don't have that content piece locked down, I think that taking the money is not a great idea, right? And it's almost like taking advantage. And I'm not saying the Facebook crowd does this, but I see a lot of comments I don't post there, but I scan it and read it. I see a lot of comments. I got my first client. It's in this space. What do I do?
Yeah.
Like to me, that's a problem, And so people need sources where they can get something valid and send it over to a user, to a client or someone who's purchasing a service. They really do need to have somewhere they can go. Because I don't think it's something that everyone can do. I don't think everyone can sit down and make a solid content plan. I don't think that they have the ability. Like you said, keyword research is particular. In my eyes, like it has to be spot on, or else you are causing a budget issue for years to come, right? Is the way I see it. So it's super important. I think it's one of the building blocks that makes everything work. So
Nice. I wanted to wheel this back a little bit to when we talked about on page and off page, in terms of people writing different, like one topic one day, then another topic the other day, and kind of being everywhere. So based on that, then you recommend if someone's coming in to start their website, or maybe they already have their website now, nail down a topic and just write everything on that one topic initially, or whatever it is, before moving on, and then just kind of
I
interlink
would
everything
I
together.
would absolutely love to see them flesh it out. At a you know a way to do it is literally look at what the competitors do. A simple site search in Google for the keyword and each competitor in there, and look at what the supporting pages are. Or go to Ahrefs and pull out the internal backlinks, or crawl them with Siteball or on crawl, deep crawl, and look at what the internal link structure looks like for that. Make a note of what the titles are for those pages, and at a bare minimum you've got a structure of what links to that page, and you might have something to do there, especially when you cross check that across multiple competitors,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think that I will say that in my markets I see a huge benefit and boost in indexation, boost in traffic, boost in ranking, and the amount of queries and impressions ranking, when a market or a topic is fully published right away rather than in pieces. So if you know you need 10 supporting articles for your one article and there's 11 pieces you need to write, instead of doing that over 11 days, I would make the decision to publish that all at one time.
Gotcha.
And the reason is that if Google does expect to see somebody that's looking for a keyboard that doesn't work, they expect that site to have a page about hardware, a page about software, a page for Windows 11, Mac OS or whatever. If I publish just the top level article and I optimize that perfectly for that, there's still scoring that happens on that next click and what document Google expects to see next. And so if you do not publish that, instantly you are less expert than the next dude that has all of it. And that's just simple math to me. I mean, it's not rocket science. And I've seen benefit from publishing it all at one time in very difficult markets. And I would say that if one thing that people start doing is publish the whole group of pages so that you touch on all the modifiers on multiple pages at the same time, and it will definitely do a better job. I've seen it with your guys' content too on some of the sites where we pushed it, and I pushed similar sites with publishing at the same time. The ones that push the whole site at the same time are going to do a heck of a lot better than the ones that are just publishing content. They just do, you know.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
That,
simple.
yeah, simple. Yeah, I like
Simple,
that.
right?
Yeah, just get 100 articles at once and just dump them all on there.
Straightforward. I mean, and they
Yeah,
better be things you need. I mean, do you need 100? Do you need
yeah,
4,000 words or not? Because
yeah.
they specifically mentioned in this announcement, and when you mentioned, we're adding in and it's getting bigger and bigger, I would caution against that because they specifically mentioned unneeded words on page. I mean, if you read, we did a stream where we went through the whole announcement, every tip they gave and every question they asked a web user for this helpful, getting ready for a helpful content update. It was really the same thing that you see in the quality raters guideline and previous core announcements, but all of it is laying out basically say what you need to say, the right stuff as quickly as possible. And so it specifically mentioned if you're publishing words, I believe it said something like that. If you're publishing words just to publish a count, you're doing it wrong because it's not about, the way I see it is the more words you publish just to publish words, the more you're going to shoot yourself in the foot because you have more of a chance to mention a word you shouldn't mention than
Yeah.
if you don't publish all of that. And there are words you shouldn't mention on certain pages just because of the way the data looks, right? And so if you're just pushing an amount of pages or amount of word count and amount of pages just because, it doesn't make sense, right? So
Is that an argument against then trying to match, say, the average word count of like the top 3 results in Google, instead trying to almost shorten it and be more concise than them? Would that be something that
yeah,
you'd look to do?
absolutely.
Okay.
I think there's no validity in the length of content, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think that the only thing that's valid in the length of content is that you need a certain amount of words to cover the modifiers that you need on that page. And
Yeah.
so word count it looks like it is something in my eyes. Like it can look like, okay, all these guys are roughly around here. Now, is it that, or do they just know what they need to mention on that page for that user? And it takes that many words roughly to get there. If you go for the word count and you don't mention certain things, it's not going to help you to have the word count.
Yeah.
And then again, if you go too short and you don't get things in, it's not going to help you to be shorter, right? But in the announcement, they did say how quickly did they find it. And there's been people talking about surveys that are popping up when they go back from, clicking onto a page, going back and getting this survey. And people are saying it's new, but it's been around for like 4 or 5 years in
Yeah.
a lot of markets. So, but they are, what they want to do is they want to give people like the best experience. And so it's very easy to tell they don't use things like bounce rate as a metric, like as a broad metric to look at, because if I'm a clock and all that people need to do is come to my page, look at a clock, and then bounce back out, um, that's not a bad thing. That's actually
Mm.
the way the page should perform. But then if I'm a site that people should be moving around on, and I'm in a topic that people should be moving around on, then it might be a bad thing. And so I think that there's a lot of things that look like it's something, and it's because of like what is really going on and what they're really paying attention to.
Gotcha. Is that kind of why you reckon then Google rolled out that 5-minute read button on the SERPs as well? Because again, they're looking
I
for
think
that
that's
short
the
form.
kind of way they're going, and they are. If they're able, I think that button is cool because any button in search is a good eye draw, right? So if you can get a button next to your snippet, get a button next to your snippet.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there's a lot of things going on. I think it's all checks and balances. I think that you need all these modifiers to be able to rank for something, and you can play around with the rank score modifiers like page rank, traffic, and things like this to push yourself further. But at the end of the day, if you don't perform, they're going to start to take your impressions away, your positioning away, and your traffic will start to dwindle, right? And sometimes it's hard to see because it might be at a certain time or a certain day, and you might look like there's a lot right now, like sites that are getting hit. They're keeping impression counts. They're keeping the position. Like their positioning isn't changing. Their impression counts aren't changing. The SERP is changing, so clicks going down or something else is happening in those graphs, right? And so yeah, they want really I do see it as super straightforward, and I am not making an argument for we have to be all white hat and tout nothing but quality, because I think people mislabel quality.
Yeah.
It's just about what that query needs for that user, and if you're doing that, then that's what they're going to reward. And that's why people are complaining on like Webmaster World and places, they're getting hit when they know that the spam sites in their market are not getting hit. And that just happens to be because that spam site might be automating things, but they're automating the right things for the user in that space, right? And so, yeah, I think that that's a lot to do with just getting that data out and giving the user what it wants. So if you focus on that user, I think you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you kind of talked about this, but we haven't labeled it. You kind of talked about the idea of having to almost change the things on your page to meet the user. And I know you've talked about previously on some of live streams you've been on about there's no such thing as evergreen content. And you're the first person I heard that from. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think about it that way. Do you want to maybe dive into a little bit of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there is. I'll say that maybe evergreen content can be that watch or that clock in the SERP, but even in that case, it can change. And what Google is doing is that they are trying to get real. They want to be as real time as possible. They want to have the latest news. They want to give people what they want that hour. They want to day part their SERPs as best as possible. So they're gonna say at 4 o'clock, I want these things to be here. Like that's where they would love to be. I'm not saying they're there or they're not there, but if they could tailor it to each user by the time of day and what that user typically does that time of day, that's why they track us. They want to know that. They want to give that to the user. And so if that's the case, and there's things like crypto and there's news, that there is never a case where the world doesn't move forward and doesn't change, right? Bitcoin doesn't necessarily ever not, it's not ever not Bitcoin, but there might be new news about pipeline hacking and the FBI taking money out of a Bitcoin account. And that is a huge implication of change in a market that potentially the definition of Bitcoin is supposed to never change, but I'd argue that it does change because if there's a new update or a feature, then
Mm.
it's changed. Like I don't think I've ever really tried to dig into anything that is truly I don't think I've ever looked for something to disprove it. I just don't think I've ever seen anything that eventually doesn't disprove the evergreen content, what I call a
Yeah.
myth, basically. And it might be, I would say it's one of the reasons that we've seen so many major brands come to us and be like, and go like, why are these people outranking us and why are we losing traffic when these people are brand new and they are doing it this way? And so they're matching the links, the link growth, they're matching all these things, but that page hasn't been updated in 10 months and then the other one's brand new.
Yeah.
So there's and on the other side, there's a maturity thing that does make a difference. Like an older page does get a boost. They absolutely do. Like an older cluster does get a boost. But the pages and the content of those clusters, like they might be crawled, they might have history, they still change, right? So the content changes when it needs to, but the page URL shouldn't if you can help it, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to think of an evergreen topic that I could find, and I don't think I can find one. Because you take a name and you can call it an entity. Like I have a page on a site that lost a ton of traffic. It was this, I think the last core and this core, about, it's just about one person, right?
Yeah.
And it's about the name and it ranks for the name. It's a major brand, and it's the person's name, but it deranked because there was a wedding missed and there was a news story missed, and that stuff is still pertinent. And so even though that entity of that name is like, it's pretty damn static, he's never not going to be that dude, right?
Yeah.
um what goes around it, what people want to see about that person,
Okay.
it changes, right? And so the page changes. So content's not evergreen. A person can be always there until they pass or whatever, and then there's history, but what we think about it might change even if that person's dead, right? Like, so something might come out, someone might not like them, they might cancel them after death or some crap, and then now the page is different. And if you're not talking about that, you're 99 website and you're no longer ranking and you're nowhere on the web, right? And so yeah, I think that to put a piece of content up and to leave it there is a disservice to your sites for sure.
That's a good. I've been actually going back and updating different important pages on my sites as well. Like just especially if they're not sitting at the very top. So I'm assuming if they're sitting in number one position for your main keyword, you're kind of leaving them regardless.
Yeah, I will not touch them,
Yeah.
because usually if they're doing that, it's a certain site type, and there's certain things that are covering other bases. So
Yeah.
I'd only go back if there's a change in my metrics and my stats and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I've been doing that. And I've had some success doing that, going back. And anyway, as well, a lot of my stuff that I write is quite heavily research based. So if new research comes out and is published, I like to look
Yep.
to add that in there as well and kind
You
of
have
keep it
to.
fresh. Yeah.
Absolutely. You absolutely have to, because that will derank eventually and lose traffic. It might not go away. It might not de-index, because you got to get pretty far away to not be in the index, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
eventually, like, there are really good, well-researched articles that were written 20 years ago that are no longer indexed because they were never updated and they're no
Yeah.
longer relevant, right? So yeah, I think that process is extremely important. I think it's one of the big things that a lot of SEOs miss is the optimize in SEO, right? So
Yeah.
going back and making sure it's where it needs to be and tuning it like that.
Mm.
Ted's really good at that stuff. Ted Kubatis,
Yeah.
you know who that is,
Yeah. I
right?
watch
Yeah,
all the SEO fight clubs as well.
yeah,
So I've picked up a few things here and there,
yeah.
but a lot of that stuff's over my head.
Yeah, he nerds out, and I love it because I obsess on this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's luckily I know Brad, because I don't think I ever would have made a real dollar if it wasn't for someone pointing me in the right direction, man. Because I would just sit there and read all day and then publish and never try to monetize. So, but yeah, it takes all types, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's I think right now, if you got your content game on lock, and then you kind of know what the content needs and you can build some links, I think you got pretty much a lot of
Mm.
what you need. I don't,
Mm.
people chase hacks, they chase this and that, and there are things, but I don't think it needs to be done. I
Yeah.
think that if you do that, it doesn't even have to be long. You don't have to take 6 years to get there, like people say. Like, you
Yeah.
can get there fast, man, if you do it right.
For sure.
I mean, especially if you get it into social, someone likes it and they start sharing it and people start visiting it. I mean, it does work. Like, the whole white hat method, that whole thing does absolutely work.
Mm.
And it can work quick.
Yeah. Something I've actually been doing on my product reviews is not putting everything in the product review at once. So I'll do like my best, depending on what other long tails there are, I'll add in there, and then I'll have maybe a couple of others worth mentioning or to avoid, and I'll publish it, and I'll see where it sits, and then if I need to, I'll add one more product,
Yep.
maybe a month later, and see where it goes, and then add one more
Yep.
product. I've done that, and for a relatively big keyword, I'm now number 2, and I updated it twice. One actually I just did last no last week. I published it and it instantly indexed to top 3
Yep.
for like a 900 search volume keyword, and I was like, holy shit, I don't understand how and why. And now I'm just gonna try fill out the rest of that silo, I think.
It's crazy, like when you start looking at everything around that. Like I'm looking at a set of queries right now, and the SERPs, you can literally see them ordered by the number in the title. Like everyone's trying to beat each other out with
Yeah.
how many products they're delivering
Yeah.
to that. So it's like starts here, let's say 200,
Yeah.
164, one this, that, and you'll see that tweak. And that's something that, there's a guy called Wicked from Australia that I talk to a lot. That's a dang good SEO, and he'll always talk to anyone about like you better be monitoring those titles and your competitor title changes and seeing what's going on. And from just history of marketing, title changes are something you should be paying attention to always,
Mm.
because if people in those tops of SERPs are changing their titles to match like rewriting or anything, then you better be paying attention and trying to figure out what they're doing and why they're doing it, because there's a reason. So matching that kind of stuff absolutely works. It does a few things, right? It can, if you put that in there, like you're doing a new product and you change that from 5 to 6 or 5 to 7 in your title, 7 awesome
Mm.
this or that, that number is psychological. It gets the click, right? You're actually using psychology to get a click through, which they're going to use metrics somewhere to see how this stuff performs. You're also adding more content, which actually might hit on a modifier that's a very good supporting modifier for the phrase or something, the way you write it. So that covers everything that we're talking about, and it should publish you up. I think my partner, we were put one up in the gaming space. It was a casino term or something, and it was a 30-day-old domain. And I think the push that was done moved it up into the top 3 or 4 in literally like 6 days, man.
Wow.
And it's that kind of thing, right? That kind of stuff that we're talking about, that will move needles. So it doesn't have to be long term. Like you don't have to think I'm going to do SEO and I'm going to take 3 years to get there because I'm doing this white hat. If you pay attention to what's going on, you can do it quickly.
Mm.
You really can. It's I think that it's more fun than it's been in a long time right now. I think it keeps getting very interesting, the way that they're taking, the way that they use machine learning, and how they've
Mm.
opened it up for us to use machine learning to actually optimize and go back in and rank for them. And I don't mean writing the content. I mean, data,
Yeah.
analyzing data and making decisions, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh
yeah.
no. I actually wanted to touch on as well, EAT. I know you've talked about that before
Yeah.
on previous live streams. I like your take on it as well. So you maybe want to dive into, maybe if anyone's listening to this, how they could improve EAT on their site, and what are the signals of EAT? Because a lot of people will just say, "Oh, I'm just going to write a really good about page," and oh, now I'm seeing
You
it.
said it already, man. You said it how you update your content, right? You said if
Yeah.
something you research well, and if something comes out that's been researched, you have to go back and add it.
Mm.
And if that makes a difference and keeps you ranking, then those things, again, we're talking about, there's a new research from a new like journal or something.
Yeah.
Now that journal name is associated with expertise for that topic. And if you don't have it there, then you're not as weighted as an expert. The way I kind of pointed out sometimes is if like in the quality rater guidelines and other documents that they write, they talk about the fact that um, just because it's cancer, just because it's medical, it doesn't need to be a doctor necessarily, right? It could
Mm.
be somebody whose brother had cancer and went through chemo if we're targeting chemo. It could be a doctor talking about it. And it's not hard for them to find out if the person is a doctor or had a brother or sister that had cancer and needed chemo, because a lot of times the doctors will say MD in the US right next to their name, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a keyword modifier. The word sister is an indicator that they have personal experience with a topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I. And one of the things that they've mentioned, and we talked about video, is that when video is created, and you've seen it in you do product reviews, man. They talked about multimedia from the beginning of this stuff, where
Yeah.
add more value to the query, right?
Yeah.
Add something in there, and that's video, that's imagery, that's something. And usually if someone makes a video is supposed to have the face on it and everything. They usually have experience, so those types of things start to add expertise to a topic, right? Now you get into like authority and trust. Authorities, to me, simply page rank. um, People talking about you and voting for you and pointing links at you, that's authority.
Mm-hmm.
Trust, to me, comes into like brand signals, and by that I mean um, something real, something that they can quantify. People visiting your site, people talking about you, mentions across the web, more backlinks, things like this. You can't really go and say exactly what they're doing, but what you can do is look query by query and know, if I don't mention something in my content, I'm not an expert. If I don't have these supporting pages, I'm not an expert. Things like an about page or linking to Wikipedia just because it's Wikipedia, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, they rewrite Wikipedia data in their SERPs, meaning they consider themselves better than Wikipedia on the knowledge, and they have the user data to back that crap up, right?
Yeah.
So when they back that up with user data and they rewrite Wikipedia, I would say taking your data out of the pages that they've shown they like for a query is probably better than going and using Wikipedia data or an entity API for NLP or something like that, right? It's just the way it's grown for me to make sense, right? And that's how I kind of evaluate different tools and things, is like, is it using just an API that is updated sometimes, or is it using real-time data, real-time information? If they're going real time, you can't compete with old data. You have to have fresh data to compete, right? So, yeah, it's the research, man. Leo, Keyword Cupid.
Yeah.
Have
I
you
was
heard of
actually,
Leo?
he was supposed to jump on the podcast at some point. I need to follow up with him, but yeah.
I'll remind him, because I was actually gonna actually see if he come talk for the event, I think, but he does a really good job with his math and his scrapes and that tool of pulling out knowledge that just nobody would see, right? He gives a good example of a car accident, where the data came back and it started talking about 2 weeks later and knee, 3 weeks later and elbow. And it was verified with an attorney and a doctor that these are injuries that show up at certain time frames. And I'm telling you, you're not going to find that in a regular keyword tool with research. You have to pull real data and group it with math to actually figure out what should be where on a page, right? And so when he does his math, he does it based on intent. And I do believe that everything that Google has done is based on intent. Right now, what I'm seeing, it looks like topic, right? You can go in and say, oh, well, this is topic because of this modifier or that modifier. But I would argue that if someone is a specific query I looked at was baby leg shaking, right?
Yeah.
I've seen sites that have lost traffic that talk about clothing, when sites that talk about other medical issues for newborns have gained traffic, right? That indicates to me that they know what the user wants when they search that query, right? They know that that's a scared parent that wants to know why their baby's leg's shaking. And then if they know that and they're tracking people and where they move to deliver good results, and they know what the next thing they're going to look at is, you know? And so if that's going on, we have to make sure we stay on the intent. And if we don't stay on the intent, then we end up deranking, and a lot of the times people will misdiagnose that as not topically relevant or whatnot, even though they are topically relevant. So yeah, it's straightforward, but it does get a little confusing at sometimes. But like I had someone say to me the other day, I was talking with him, and he's like, I think in the same paragraph, he mentioned like 5 different intent types. And I kind of laughed and I said, we sound insane, bro. Like, this sounds crazy, but it makes sense to me. And it makes sense to him to look at it from the fact that I've explained it, that there's a query intent. So like what everybody wants, that like what the query is built off of in the SERP. So how Google builds that SERP is the query intent to me. And then you have the user intent. The user intent for the baby leg shaking actually changes once they hit the page and they get more information, right? It doesn't stay static.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Because someone might come in and clothing might be what they need. Their baby might just be cold, or there might be another thing going on. And depending on where that user goes, well, now they've gone off into another profile. And now they're part of a different user base, and they're going to get a different top story on their device. They're going to get a different, news stories and things. They'll just get a different experience on their device than we will. And that just crafts it, and they'll just eventually get better at delivering that more real time. And I really do see that is the way Google is going to move forward and develop. I don't think we have a lot of changes to make in what we do going forward. I think we just need to stay on top of it and do the same kind of processes with the right data. And if we do that, I think we stay very safe and are able to market the stuff we want to market.
Nice.
So,
I guess the idea of EAT with being like kind of the links and covering everything on the page gives you the expertise and authority. Does that kind of dismiss the idea of having to have a verified by blah 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 MD on the page and then have author profiles that link to LinkedIn profiles and all these other things? Is that stuff kind of moot then, in terms of, I guess,
to me, so I look at that, like, I know that there's markets that we're in where if we don't use a certain, like Trustpilot, right?
Yeah.
And if we're not using it, it seems to be that we don't do as well. And so to me, again, they can easily see the code there and they can easily scrape that data because I can scrape that data and they're better and smarter than me. It's easy for them to see something. And when I talk about real time, all these queries have different factors in the way I see it. Like, I can't rank for top online casinos the same way I rank for drug rehab in San Diego or something like that. I just can't do it. It's not the same thing. And in the like your mileage may vary markets and where medics started and when they started rolling all this stuff that they're still rolling out, like that's what this is just moving forward. They go in and they tune these different markets and rescore the SERPs, and they have their quality raters, voting on different features. And as they add in requirements for expertise in a given query, things could become part of that query that are required to be there. Or it could not mean anything. It could just be correlated to it because it looks like it, right? It could be causation instead of, or it could just look, I'm going to lose track of that. But I think that if we try to go in there and analyze if I need Trustpilot or I need to be verified in this journal or I should be on Google Scholar and link my author profile, we're having to worry about too much data, right? We're having to make too many decisions. So I think emulating again off of what's in the SERP is still the right answer. So even if I think that we don't need something, if I see all my competitors doing that, I'm not the client that says, but I'm the expert. I'm the one really doing it. Google's wrong, because I hear that crap a lot. That's just not true. Google's always right because they build the SERP. So if you're not doing what Google asks for, you're not doing what you need to do to rank. So I guess to me, it's neither here nor there. I haven't given it much thought because if you're looking at the right things, I think that just happens naturally.
Yeah.
But in like rehab, if I have a doctor involved in a campaign and I don't, the doctor involved campaign will do better than when the doctor is not involved. Is that because there's more links, there's more something or other? I don't know what it is. But I know that the doctor makes it easier, so I want a doctor involved, right?
Okay. That makes sense. Do you have much more time? I've got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah, I'm good, man. Go shoot.
Oh, perfect. All right. My next one is, I don't know if you've done anything with or any testing on Google Discover traffic. So I get a shit ton of Discover traffic. And depending on, so usually when I'll hold Discover traffic and then an update might come and I'll lose the Discover traffic and then an update might come again and I'll just get it right back, just like cranking. And I figured that I can, if I just keep putting something, publishing it every now and then, I can almost keep it rolling. And then as soon as I kind of stop, it kind of starts to come down. So I don't know if there's anything on your side.
I haven't tested a ton there, but the stuff where I see it, it correlates to a lot of news. And for me, at least, news and publishing. And it's a cycle where I'll lose I can't remember if it's the discover traffic first or the actual web traffic first, but the page will lose both in the same cycle. And it seems to kind of roll topically like that, or metrically like that when there's an interest. I think the content types that I do, it's more about the trends that I'm getting there. So I don't know if I'm a great person to answer the specifics there.
Yeah.
Haven't paid a ton of attention. I do know that they are maybe a day or two off for me, and I do believe it's the SERP content that follows the fall. So the discover traffic falls and then the SERP content, but I'm not positive.
No, fair enough.
Are you doing it? So you're cycling. Are you talking about with an update of the site or with an
No,
update?
with a Google update, and it just
Let me go.
holds.
I'm going to look real quick. I'm actually interested in that because I did notice something on a couple of sites. So now, actually, I'm making a note, man. I'll get back to you with that because it just sparked an interest there.
Perfect.
So,
and I've got one more question for you, and
Yep.
that is, what do you see as the future of Google search? Because obviously they're adding more and more features. You search a product now, like best whatever, you got Google Shopping up the top. Obviously you mentioned you got the videos, you got people also asked, you've got whole video bloody carousels going on, shorts. I guess, what do you see as the future for the SERPs and maybe for even bloggers?
I think that I'm positive that they build the SERPs based on the data they see with users using the content. And like, so again, I'll go back to the ad buying or the AdWords where you're bidding on a spot. Just because the bid's the same doesn't necessarily mean you're showing up above someone. So in a query, if video is getting a lot of traffic and snippets aren't, Google's going to put the video above that. Now, in other queries where the web is getting a lot of traffic and doing well and the videos aren't, then that's going to switch. And so I think the future of SEO is machine learning and data. And I think that if you are paying attention to the data, that they can make the changes that they want to make, and you'll notice it, and you'll make the right changes on your site and move forward with that. And you'll stay where you need to stay with the traffic. So I think it is in data. I really do believe it's in data.
Awesome. And before we finish this up, do you want to maybe touch on your NFG SEO little online conference too?
Go ahead.
No, you touch on that.
Yeah, no, we got poked on. We were going to do this in Orlando, and people kept poking at us to do it online so they could come from different places because this travel year has been interesting. So we are actually going to do it digitally, a digital workshop at the end of the month. It's at nfg2022.com, so nfg2022.com. And we're actually just going to go into what we're talking about right now. Some of the sites that we have running are sites that you guys have put together and stuff, man. And Brad's put together a process that I think the sites are going up, and in the first month they're doing a few thousand, and it's repeatable, it's cheap, and it's straightforward. So we're doing that, and then having some people come talk about how to tie the GMB in and then automate that into the agency as well. So, and I'm just going straight over SEO and doing using machine learning to do what we're talking about, and just make decisions quickly, and then have writers make the changes you need. And so we're just doing a system, man. And yeah, so anyone that's interested, they can come talk to us there. And I think you got me down a rabbit hole today, potentially, with the Discover stuff. Man,
awesome.
I think I noticed something. So.
Oh, very good. I'll be interested to hear that too. But I'll put that link down in the description. Is there any way else people can follow what you're doing?
We do NFG monthly. I think that's nfgseo.com. So, and then we're over with Craig too. And we're starting to do some office hours on YouTube. So there's an NFG SEO channel, but we're not super good about keeping things updated because we're working a lot and doing what we like to do a lot. So, but yeah, Craig's a good way. Craig's channel over there at Cashflow Digital on Craig Campbell's deal. And then over at nfgseo.com, and then the event. That's about it. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Mike. I really appreciate it. It was knowledge bombs for the hour.
Thanks for the time, man. Appreciate the talk.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Until the next episode, goodbye.